Let's just jump right in. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving into the slightly maddening, totally Kafkaesque story of cartographer Kenji Mori. We're going to use his journey to decode the unwritten rules of navigating modern institutional bureaucracy. Look, if you've ever felt completely crushed by paperwork, endlessly redirected, or just trapped in the loop of institutional forms, you're going to find this explainer incredibly validating. Let's get into it. So how do you fight a system that absolutely does not want to be understood? We start right there, alongside Kenji. He's a municipal cartographer who stumbles onto a massive discrepancy in a zoning decision. A boundary line between a conservation zone and a development zone was moved, seemingly out of thin air. He knows the map is wrong, and he's actually got the historical data to prove it. So he drops right into the system, trying to appeal this complex boundary decision. But as he quickly learns, having the facts, that's maybe 10% of the battle. Part 1. The shape of the system. We map our first territory by stepping into the preliminary submissions office. Here, Kenji is handed a seemingly innocent blue form, Form 3B. Now picture this. Kenji arrives armed with 32 pages of double-spaced, footnoted, expert cartographic arguments. But the institution? They demand this complex appeal be violently compressed into a tiny 4x8 centimeter rectangle on this little blue form. The system immediately forces a massive reduction of the truth just to make it fit into their predetermined box. And honestly, this brilliantly illustrates those absurd procedural loops designed to just stall your progress. Since Kenji has 32 pages, he obviously needs to attach them, right? Well, to attach them, he needs Form 7C. But wait, to get Form 7C from a totally different floor, he has to provide a copy of the incomplete blue form he's currently holding. It's a literal endless circular dance just to submit his evidence. He's forced into his first bureaucratic maze just to get a basic case reference number. Which brings us to a quote from the notebook Kenji starts keeping to track all of this. Rule 1. The process is not designed for you. This highlights a pretty brutal truth. The process was never built for the user's convenience or even for their understanding. It was built entirely for the institution's internal logic. It's opaque by design, not by accident. Part 2, the parallel processes. Let's move over to the waiting room, because frankly, that's where the real education happens. Kenji makes it to room 7 and notices something profound. The chairs face each other. It's here he meets Suzuki, a fellow appellant who is 7 months deep into her own case. She reveals the hidden reality of the institution. In this waiting room, knowledge is traded among strangers. She leans in and teaches Kenji that fighting the original decision simply isn't enough. You have to simultaneously run hidden, parallel processes to force the system to reveal its secrets. Just look at the sheer anxiety of this timeline mismatch. Kenji is scheduled for a preliminary substantive hearing in 21 days, but Suzuki tells him, no, you need to file a completely separate disclosure request to uncover the original reasoning behind the map change. The catch here? That disclosure takes 60 to 90 days. He has to run these tracks in parallel, frantically managing the timing just to figure out what he's actually fighting against. Part 3, the power of the record. Moving up to the secondary review stage, Kenji faces coordinator Ishida, who insists his maps need independent certification. Ishida is meticulous, and she delivers a massive blow. Kenji can't just present the truth. It has to be institutionally formatted through Form 14A. But before he leaves, she delivers arguably the most crucial advice of this whole explainer. The record you've kept becomes the record. Listen to that. The system won't track your truth. It won't track your conversations. Your personal documentation, every pink receipt, every yellow form, every scribbled note, literally becomes your institutional survival map. Part 4, the hidden map. Taking Suzuki's advice, Kenji successfully initiates a full disclosure request with a surprisingly helpful clerk. Finally, after 62 days of waiting, Kenji receives a 47-page record from the institution. And boom, he discovers a massive, glaring discrepancy. Here is the absolute heart of the conflict. The decision-makers completely ignored Kenji's 80-year historical cartographic record. Instead, they relied on a mysterious 18-month-old geodetic survey that just magically moved the boundary. And the worst part of all this? This new survey had zero documented methodology in the disclosure packet. Nothing. But because Kenji is learning to spot these institutional gaps, he realizes the disclosure packet is missing pieces. the actual deliberation is missing. So he immediately files Form 2C to demand the hidden deliberative record that explains this sudden map switch. And later, when the institution vaguely claims the map shifted due to a systematic offset, he's right there filing Form 6B to demand the raw third-party data from the developers. It's form after form just to see the board he's playing on. Part 5. The Substantive Hearing. Finally, armed with his certified facsimiles and that meticulous notebook, Kenji stands before the three-person panel in room 12. The senior panel officer asks Kenji straight up what he wants. Instead of just arguing the map's boundary, Kenji makes a really profound demand for institutional transparency on the record. He states perfectly clearly, "I want the process to produce an answer that has a reason." He basically tells them, look, I can accept an outcome I disagree with, but I absolutely refuse to accept an answer built on institutional silence. Which perfectly segues into Rule 4 from Kenji's notebook. The process can only find the fact and name it correctly. You see, when that deliberative record finally trickled in, claiming a systematic offset in the old maps, Kenji's expert confirmed that a geodetic correction could account for maybe a few meters. But a 12-hectare shift? Literally impossible. Kenji effectively cornered the system using its own technical language. Part 6. The True Resolution. On the 13th day after his hearing, a pale, institutional gray envelope finally arrives. He opens it right there in the entryway of his apartment building. And Kenji doesn't get a simple reversal. He doesn't automatically win the boundary back. Instead, he gets a remand. Now, in this context, that is the ultimate bureaucratic victory. The original decision is sent back for reconsideration, and the institution is legally forced to explicitly explain its methodology and answer Kenji's specific technical questions within 60 days. The original decision can no longer hide in the dark. Near the end of his journey, Kenji is back in that waiting room. He meets a distressed young man clutching his very first blue form, and Kenji passes his wisdom down. He realizes that success in the labyrinth isn't always about destroying the maze. It's simply about making the system officially acknowledge the facts. Rule 5. You change the record. The decision can no longer rest on silence. Kenji started out trying to fix a single map, but he ended up mapping the bureaucracy itself and handing that map to the next person in line. So I leave you with this final thought to ponder the next time you face an unyielding, opaque system in your own life. When you enter the labyrinth, are you merely trying to escape, or are you drawing the map for the next person? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.